Do you have one day a week that you set aside as a day of rest? Hi, I'm Coach Maggie with another Soul Food Sunday. And I know this has been a topic that's been coming up more and more of rest. And I think we live in such hectic days that we need it. So I went back, and in Exodus chapter 20, God is giving Moses the Ten Commandments that we're familiar with. And one of them, the fourth one, he says, remember the Sabbath. Remember to observe it. That's a word we don't use today, the Sabbath, but it's a day of rest. And it's interesting that it starts out with remember. You only need to remember things that you have a chance of forgetting. And let's face it, it's easy to forget because we go constantly, 24/7. We go, go, go. And because of that, it leads to sickness, it leads to fatigue, it leads to a lot of emotional strain on us, depression. We feel overwhelmed. And a lot of it, I believe, is because we aren't really going back to this biblical principle of remembering the Sabbath. Now, this is a modern translation, and it says, remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. That means it's set apart. It's not just I go and do nothing. It's actually active, but we're not working. It says you have 6 days in the week to fulfill all those ordinary tasks, but the seventh is a day that should be dedicated to the Lord your God. And what we've done in modern times is we work like crazy the first 6 days of the week, and then the seventh day, in this case Sunday, often becomes that day that it's a catch-up day. It's the day to do, I forgot to do the laundry. I need to plan meals for next week. And so we start off on the wrong foot. And I personally think that's often why Mondays are so crazy for so many people, is because instead of Sunday being that day to rejuvenate, to connect with God, to work on that relationship with Jesus Christ, we are out there doing all the things that we didn't get done. Now, before some of you go crazy, I realize that depending on work, a lot of people work on Sunday. But you have to find that time that you can carve that out as this is my time. This is my time to commit to developing that relationship. For me and for most people, Sunday is that day. But how do we spend that day? It's saying, really, it's dedicated. It's a day of rest, and it's dedicated to connecting with God. For me, that looks like going to early morning prayer, going to church, reading my Bible, calling family members, connecting that way. It can look a lot of different ways, but it has to be intentional because let's face it, it is not going to just happen. Because if we leave it to chance, it's going to be that day that it's just catch up. I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. Now, the Old Testament even went on to say that this also included your household chores. It included your sons and daughters, your servants, livestock, everything. Now, we've got to be careful. We don't want to be so, over the top that it's like we can't do anything, but there's a big, big span here. And so I know it's one that I've struggled with, but more and more, Sundays for me, a lot of times, you know what? It's leftovers. It's just me and my husband. We don't have family coming. I've made Sundays a lot easier because that's a day that is just heating up food. That's a day that I kick back. The weather's nice. I sit out on the deck. I have time to read my Bible, pray, journal, do a lot of the things that during the week, sometimes it's hard to find time for. But it has to be something you decide, has to be something that you are diligent about, because there's always going to be things that are going to come up. Now, obviously, there are going to be those times when you have every good intention, but there's an emergency. That doesn't mean you go and say, I'd love to help you, but I can't because it's my day of rest. No. but it is for those typical things. Make sure that you are planning those. When we work on Sunday, in this case, it's saying, you know what, God, I don't have time for you, and there's not room for you, but I have all these other things, and they're more important than you. And I don't want to say that. If I can't take out and carve at least some time, a good portion of the day to the Lord, that means maybe I've got too many other things going on and I need to reconsider. So let this be. Maybe for you, you're listening to this, but you have to work today. Find that time. Find that time that you set aside specifically for rejuvenation, for getting recharged, for connecting with the Lord. Finding out what are the goals for this week? How should you be working through this week? Get into his word. Make prayer a priority. And let's get back to that time of setting aside that day, whether it's Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, whenever it is, but committing to having that day of rest and bringing back the idea of having a holy Sabbath that is set aside for the main purpose of connecting our soul with God and remembering who we are and his goals and his plans for our lives. So go out, have an amazing week, but take time today, even if it's tonight, take time, spend with him, and continue that conversation. Lord, what are your plans for me this week? Come back tomorrow morning. We'll be talking more on my 5-minute Monday mindset, because mindset, so much happens up here before it ever happens with our hands and our feet. As always, take care and God bless.